Lucas, a young man with a hearing impairment, struggles with loneliness and bullying at school. His life changes when he discovers his passion for acting, forming unexpected bonds and overcoming obstacles that lead him on a journey of self-discovery and overcoming obstacles. Alongside Sarah, a classmate who also feels out of place, they challenge the norms and promote a campaign for inclusion. However, an unexpected revelation at the climax of the story changes everything he believed about himself and his place in the world. Lucas sat at a table in the bustling school cafeteria, the din of laughter and chatter swirling around him like an uninvited storm. He looked down at his untouched tray of food, the colors of the pasta salad and fruit cups seeming to mock his sense of isolation. Students clustered in groups, their voices rising and falling like a tide, punctuated by the occasional burst of laughter. Lucas could see their smiles, hear the rhythm of their conversations, but he was unable to join in. To him, the sound was a distant echo, a world beyond reach. He felt the familiar knot in his stomach as he scanned the cafeteria, trying to catch a glimpse of someone who might notice him, a friend, perhaps. But his gaze fell to the floor as he watched a group of boys at the adjacent table. They were talking animatedly, and Lucas felt their eyes flicker in his direction. He tensed, bracing himself for the inevitable. "Look who it is, the ghost," one of the boys sneered. A smirk plastered across his face. The others laughed, and Lucas could feel the heat rise to his cheeks. It was an old routine, one that had played out countless times since he had started high school. He wished he could just disappear, sink into the floor and escape the stinging words that cut through the air. Instead, he clutched his phone tightly, scrolling aimlessly through messages he never sent, feeling the walls of the cafeteria closing in around him. Just as he thought he might be able to blend into the background, the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. Students began to gather their things, chattering about the next period. Lucas took a deep breath and rose from his seat, the weight of the world pressing down on him. At home, he found solace in the quiet of his room, where the walls were adorned with posters of classic films and famous actors. He flopped onto his bed, staring at the ceiling. His mother, Carla, knocked gently on the door before entering. "Lucas, honey, how was school today?" she asked, her voice warm yet laced with concern. "Same as always," he replied, avoiding her gaze. Just fine, huh?" Carla leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed over her chest. She studied him for a moment, the worry evident in her eyes. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right?" Lucas sighed heavily. I'm tired of the teasing, Mom. It never ends. I don't think I can take it anymore." Carla approached him and sat down on the edge of his bed. "I know it's tough, sweetheart, but you're so much stronger than you realize. Have you thought about trying something new? Maybe joining a club or a team. It could help you meet new people." Lucas shrugged, the idea of putting himself out there feeling like an insurmountable challenge. What if they don't want me? What if they just laugh at me? His voice cracked, revealing the vulnerability he tried so hard to hide. "Lucas, I know it's scary, but you won't know until you try. You have so much talent, and acting could be a great way for you to express yourself," Carla encouraged, brushing a stray hair from his forehead. "Remember how you used to put on little shows for me when you were younger? You loved it." A flicker of interest sparked in Lucas's eyes as memories washed over him, performing silly skits in the living room, his mother's laughter echoing in his ears. "But I don't know if I could do it anymore. What if I mess up?" "You won't know unless you give it a shot," Carla smiled gently. "Why don't you come to the community theater rehearsal with me tomorrow? You can watch and see if it sparks anything in you." Lucas hesitated, the thought of stepping into a new world both thrilling and terrifying. "Okay, I'll think about it," he finally said, a hint of curiosity in his tone. The next day, Lucas found himself sitting in the back of the community theater, a world of creativity unfolding before him. The air was filled with the smell of paint and the sound of voices rehearsing lines. He watched as actors transformed into their characters, their emotions spilling over into the room. It was mesmerizing. Suddenly, during a break, a director called out, "All right, everyone, let's take 5. Lucas, come here for a second." Lucas's heart raced as he stood up, unsure of what to expect. The director, a lively woman with a mop of curly hair, approached him with a warm smile. "You're Carla's son, right? I've heard so much about you. Have you ever thought about acting?" Lucas shrugged, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety. "I used to do it when I was younger, but I'm not sure I can anymore. I can't hear my lines." "Acting isn't just about speaking," she replied, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "It's about conveying emotions, telling a story. You have a unique perspective, and that can actually be an asset. Why don't you give it a try?" As the rehearsal continued, Lucas found himself drawn into the world of acting. He watched as the actors moved, their bodies communicating in ways words could not. He noticed how they expressed joy, sadness, and anger through gestures and facial expressions. A flicker of inspiration ignited within him. Perhaps this was a way to connect with others, to break down the barriers he felt trapped behind. After the rehearsal, Lucas approached his mother, excitement bubbling within him. "Mom, I think I want to try acting again." Carla beamed, her face lighting up with pride. "That's wonderful, Lucas. I knew you had it in you. What do you want to do?" "I don't know yet, but I want to learn to express myself without being afraid," he said, a newfound determination in his voice. "Let's take it one step at a time," Carla suggested, wrapping her arm around his shoulders. "I'll support you every step of the way. Just promise me you'll keep an open mind." Lucas nodded, feeling a sense of hope blooming within him. For the first time in a long time, he felt a glimmer of possibility on the horizon, a chance to break free from the chains of loneliness and bullying that had weighed him down for so long. He was ready to take that leap, ready to discover who he could be. Lucas stood hesitantly outside the drama club's door, his heart pounding in his chest. The familiar sounds of laughter and chatter spilled out into the hallway, blending with the palpable energy of creativity and expression. He had spent countless hours watching performances on stage, longing to be part of that world, yet the thought of stepping into the room made him feel like he was about to plunge into an icy lake. He took a deep breath, the familiar scent of old scripts and paint wafting through the air, and pushed the door open. Inside, the room was alive with activity. Students were rehearsing lines, discussing staging, and experimenting with various accents. Lucas felt a wave of anxiety wash over him as he surveyed the group. He was about to turn back when a voice broke through the chaos. "Hey, you must be new." A girl with curly hair and bright blue eyes approached him, her smile warm and inviting. "I'm Sarah. Are you here to join the drama club?" Lucas nodded, feeling a mix of embarrassment and excitement. "I'm Lucas. I've never done anything like this before." "Neither have I." "Well, at least not for real," Sarah replied, her enthusiasm infectious. "I've always wanted to try, but I've been too scared. But this year I thought, why not? We should both just go for it." Lucas felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he wasn't alone in his fears. As they chatted, he could see that Sarah carried her own apprehensions just as he did. The two quickly found common ground, sharing nervous laughter about their mutual uncertainty. As the meeting went on, Lucas listened intently as the drama teacher, Mr. Thompson, explained the upcoming production. "We'll be putting on a classic play, and I want everyone to bring their unique talents to the table. Don't worry about being perfect. This is all about exploring and expressing ourselves." Lucas felt his stomach knot. The thought of being on stage, performing lines, made him uncomfortable. But he also felt a strange thrill at the idea of expressing himself in a way that transcended words. He had always struggled with communication, but perhaps acting could be a way to connect with others. After the meeting, Sarah turned to Lucas. "Are you going to audition?" "I'm thinking about it. I mean, what's the worst that could happen, right?" Lucas hesitated. "I don't know. I can't hear the lines. What if I mess up?" She placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Look, I think it's amazing that you're here. Everyone has their own strengths. You just have to find yours. I believe in you, Lucas." Her encouragement sparked something within him. With a newfound determination, he decided to give it a shot. "Okay, I'll audition," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. As the days passed, Lucas and Sarah's friendship blossomed. They spent hours rehearsing together, helping each other memorize lines and practicing their expressions in front of a mirror. It was during one such session that Lucas learned more about Sarah's life. "Can I tell you something?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. They were sitting on the floor of the empty theater, surrounded by scattered scripts and props. "I've never really talked about this before." Lucas shifted, giving her his full attention. "Of course, you can tell me anything." "My dad left when I was really young," she confessed, her eyes downcast. "I've always felt like I wasn't good enough, like something was wrong with me. When he left, I thought it was my fault. I've tried to convince myself it doesn't matter, but it does. I just wish I knew why he left." Lucas felt a pang of sympathy for her. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I can't imagine how hard that must be for you, but you're not alone. I've faced my own struggles too." "Like what?" she asked, glancing at him, curiosity shining in her eyes. He hesitated, then shared, "I have hearing loss. It's been tough for me, especially at school. People can be really mean, and I often feel invisible." She nodded, understanding flickering in her gaze. "I get it. We're both trying to find our place, aren't we?" "Yeah," he replied, a sense of camaraderie growing between them. "But I think acting is helping. It's like I can express things without having to rely on words alone." As their rehearsals continued, Lucas discovered a hidden talent he never knew he had. During an improvisation exercise, Mr. Thompson encouraged the students to act out different emotions without speaking. Lucas felt the energy of the room shift as he stepped forward, letting his instincts take over. He began to mime a scene of joy, his face lighting up with an exaggerated smile, arms outstretched as if embracing the world. The laughter of his peers echoed in the room, and for a moment, he felt a rush of exhilaration. He transformed his anxiety into energy, his movements fluid and expressive. When he finished, the room erupted in applause and Lucas stood there, stunned. "Lucas, that was incredible." Sarah beamed, rushing over to him. "You were amazing." I didn't think I could do that," he admitted, a smile creeping onto his face. "I felt free." Mr. Thompson approached, his expression one of surprise and admiration. "Lucas, I didn't know you had that in you. You've shown a real gift for physical expression. Keep that up and you'll go far in this club." Encouraged by the positive feedback, Lucas found himself eagerly anticipating the next rehearsals. He worked hard to develop his characters, using sign language to add depth to his performances. The combination of movement and expression allowed him to convey emotions he struggled to articulate verbally. As auditions for the lead role approached, Lucas felt a mix of excitement and fear. He and Sarah spent late nights practicing, and she encouraged him every step of the way. "You've got this, Lucas. Just remember to breathe and enjoy it. You've come so far already." On the day of auditions, Lucas arrived early, his heart racing. The room buzzed with anticipation as students prepared to showcase their talents. He could see the nervousness plastered on the faces around him, and it made him feel a little more at ease. When it was his turn, Lucas stepped onto the stage, the bright lights blinding him momentarily. He took a breath and remembered Sarah's words. He focused on the character he had chosen, embodying the emotions and intentions of the role. As he began to act, he felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, but this time it was accompanied by a sense of empowerment. When he finished, the room was silent for a moment, then erupted into applause. Lucas's heart soared. He had done it. He had taken a leap of faith, and it had paid off. As he stepped off the stage, he caught Sarah's eye, her face beaming with pride. "You were phenomenal," she exclaimed, rushing to him. "I knew you could do it." Lucas felt gratitude wash over him. The journey they had embarked on together had brought them closer, and he realized that he wasn't just overcoming his fears. He was forging a deep connection with someone who understood him. "Thanks, Sarah. I couldn't have done it without your support," he replied, feeling a warmth in his chest. As they walked out of the theater, Lucas felt lighter. The weight of loneliness began to lift, replaced by a sense of belonging he had longed for. With Sarah by his side, he felt ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they were discovering not just their passion for acting, but also the strength of friendship and the power of inclusion. Lucas stood in front of the mirror in his room, the faint afternoon light illuminating his face as he practiced his lines for the school play. His heart raced with excitement and anxiety. The lead role in the upcoming production was both a privilege and a source of immense pressure. He had spent countless hours memorizing his lines, but this was different. This time, he was determined to express himself fully, to convey emotions that had long been bottled up inside him. "Okay, Lucas, you can do this," he murmured to himself, his hand moving in fluid motions, mimicking the signs he had learned. He had discovered that sign language wasn't just a means of communication. It was a beautiful art form that allowed him to express feelings he often found hard to articulate. Just then, there was a soft knock on his door. It was his mother, Carla. "Honey, are you ready for today's rehearsal?" she asked, her voice warm and encouraging. "Almost, Mom. Just practicing my lines," Lucas replied, flashing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Carla stepped inside, concern etched on her face. "You know, it's okay to be nervous. Everyone feels that way before a big performance," she said, brushing a stray hair from Lucas's forehead. "I know, but what if I mess up? What if they laugh at me like they used to?" he said, his voice barely above a whisper, the memories of past taunts bubbling to the surface. "They won't, Lucas. You've worked so hard for this. Just remember, this is your moment to shine. You're going to show them who you really are," Carla encouraged, her eyes sparkling with pride. With a deep breath, Lucas nodded, feeling a flicker of determination igniting within him. "Okay, let's go," he said, pushing aside his fears as he grabbed his bag and headed out the door. At the community theater, the air was buzzing with excitement. Other members of the drama club were already gathered, chatting and rehearsing their parts. Lucas felt a familiar flutter of nerves in his stomach as he walked in, but he quickly spotted Sarah sitting in a corner, her brow furrowed in concentration as she practiced her own lines. "Hey, Sarah," he called, making his way over to her. She looked up, her face lighting up with a smile. "Lucas, how's it going?" "I've been practicing. I think I'm finally getting the hang of my character," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Good. I can't wait to see you perform. You're going to blow everyone away," Sarah said, her enthusiasm infectious. As rehearsals began, Lucas felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. The director called for them to gather on stage, and as he stood in front of the audience, a sea of expectant faces, he felt his heart pound in his chest. He glanced at Sarah, who gave him an encouraging nod. "Okay, everyone, let's start with Lucas's scene," the director announced, gesturing for Lucas to step forward. Taking a deep breath, Lucas positioned himself at center stage, the spotlight warming his skin. The first few lines came out a bit shaky, but as he continued, he found his footing. He began to incorporate sign language, letting his hands dance through the air as he expressed his character's emotions. The words flowed more freely as he immersed himself in the role, drawing strength from the supportive energy of the cast and crew. After his scene, the director clapped, a grin spreading across his face. "That was fantastic, Lucas. You really brought the character to life. The way you integrated sign language was powerful. It added a whole new layer to your performance." Lucas felt a surge of pride wash over him. This was what he had been longing for, a chance to be seen as more than just the boy with hearing loss. He was an actor, a storyteller, and his disability was not a limitation but a unique aspect of his artistry. As rehearsals continued, Lucas found himself more at ease. With each passing day, he experimented with different expressions, movements, and signs, discovering how they could convey the deepest of emotions. He would often look to Sarah for support, and they would share notes and ideas during breaks, talking about their characters and what they wanted to bring to the stage. "Lucas, I think you should really embrace the emotional moments," Sarah suggested one afternoon, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Your character is dealing with loss, and I think expressing that through your signs will resonate with the audience. Yeah, I agree, Lucas replied, his eyes lighting up with excitement. I've been thinking about using some of the signs for sadness and longing. I want them to feel what he's feeling. Sarah smiled, her eyes sparkling with admiration. You're going to be amazing. I can't wait to see it. As opening night approached, Lucas felt a swirl of emotions. The excitement of performing was mingled with anxiety and doubt. He recalled the taunts and ridicule from earlier in the school year, the feeling of isolation that had blanketed him like a heavy fog. What if they don't understand? What if I fail? He confided in Sarah during a rehearsal break. Lucas, you're not going to fail. You're going to inspire them. Remember what you told me? You're not just acting. You're sharing a part of yourself with them. And they will see that, she reassured him. On the night of the performance, the theater was packed. The buzz of chatter filled the air as families and friends settled into their seats. Lucas could feel the energy in the room, a mix of excitement and nerves. He took a deep breath, focusing on the sounds of the audience, the dim lights casting shadows on the stage. As he stepped onto the stage, the spotlight hit him, blinding him momentarily. But as he found his place, he remembered Sarah's words and the support of his friends. He began to speak his lines, the words flowing like water as he poured his heart into the character. And then, as he transitioned into a moment of deep emotion, he switched to sign language, letting his hands tell the story. The audience fell silent, captivated by the rawness of his performance. He felt the energy shift, a connection forming between him and the viewers. He was no longer the invisible boy in the cafeteria. He was a storyteller, weaving a narrative that resonated deeply. As he finished his final line, the theater erupted into applause. The sound washed over him like a wave, and for the first time in a long while, Lucas felt accepted, celebrated for who he was. He scanned the audience, his eyes landing on Sarah, who was clapping enthusiastically, her face beaming with pride. In that moment, Lucas knew that he had not only overcome his fears but had also forged a bond with those around him. As the applause continued, Lucas took a deep breath, a smile spreading across his face. He had stepped into the spotlight, not just as an actor, but as a young man who had defied the odds. The journey wasn't over, but tonight he had proven to himself that he was capable of so much more than he had ever imagined. As the curtain fell on the stage, the roar of applause washed over Lucas like a wave. He stood there, heart racing, a mixture of disbelief and exhilaration coursing through him. The bright stage lights illuminated his face, reflecting the joy he felt inside. In that moment, he was no longer the boy who sat alone in the cafeteria, invisible and ignored. He was Lucas, the actor who had captured the hearts of those who once teased him. Did you see that? Sarah exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she rushed to join him, her cheeks flushed. You were incredible. I can't believe how you brought that character to life. Lucas smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. Thanks, Sarah. I was so nervous, but once I got on stage, everything just clicked. It felt like I was meant to be there. You were more than meant to be there. You owned that stage, she replied, her enthusiasm infectious. The two friends stood on the edge of the stage, the audience still buzzing with energy as they filed out of the auditorium. As the applause echoed in his ears, Lucas caught sight of some of the students who had once bullied him. They were clapping, some with genuine admiration in their eyes. It was a surreal moment, and for the first time he felt a sense of belonging that had eluded him for so long. Hey, look at them, Sarah said, nodding toward the group of students. They're actually impressed. You've changed their minds tonight. Yeah, I guess so, Lucas replied, still trying to process the shift in dynamics. But it's hard to forget the things they said, the way they looked at me. Maybe tonight was the start of something new, Sarah said softly. You showed them who you really are. That's powerful. Lucas nodded, but a knot of uncertainty tightened in his stomach. Would their change of heart last? Would he be able to hold on to this newfound confidence? He pushed the doubts aside as they made their way off stage, still riding the high of the performance. Back in the cafeteria the next day, the atmosphere felt different. Students greeted Lucas with smiles and nods. They approached him, some even complimenting his performance. It was surreal, and he found himself smiling back, surprised by the warmth he felt in their presence. Hey Lucas, great job last night, shouted Jake, one of the more popular guys at school. You seriously killed it. Thanks, man, Lucas replied, his voice a mix of disbelief and pride. Jake had been one of his biggest tormentors, and to hear those words felt like a victory he never anticipated. As Lucas settled into his usual spot at the lunch table, Sarah slid into the seat across from him, her tray laden with food. Did you see that? Jake actually complimented you, she said, her eyes wide with excitement. I know. It's just unexpected, Lucas said, still trying to wrap his mind around it. I never thought I'd hear that from him. Well, you deserve it, Sarah said earnestly. You've worked so hard, and you've shown everyone that you're not just the kid with hearing loss. You're an amazing actor. Lucas looked into her eyes, feeling a swell of gratitude. I couldn't have done it without you, Sarah. You pushed me to join the drama club and helped me every step of the way. As the days passed, the buzz around the performance continued, and the seeds of Sarah's idea for an inclusion campaign began to take root. During lunch one day, she leaned across the table, her expression serious. What if we created an event to promote diversity in our school? Sarah suggested, her voice filled with passion. We could invite everyone to share their stories just like we did in the drama club. It could help people people understand each other better. Lucas felt a spark of excitement at the thought. That's a great idea. We could call it Voices Unheard or something like that. We can share our experiences and maybe others will want to join in. Sarah's eyes lit up and she nodded eagerly. Yes, we can ask our teachers for support and get the student council involved. Imagine the impact we could have. Lucas felt a rush of determination. The thought of sharing their stories, of challenging the norms that had made their lives so difficult, filled him with purpose. Let's do it. We can't let this moment fade away. We have to keep pushing for change. They spent the next few weeks planning the event, pouring their hearts into every detail. They designed posters, made announcements, and spoke to their classmates about the importance of inclusion. Surprisingly, many students rallied behind them, eager to participate in the event. As the day of the event approached, Lucas felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Would people really come? Would they feel safe sharing their stories? He confided in Sarah during one of their planning sessions. What if no one shows up? What if they don't care? Lucas said, biting his lip in worry. They will care, Lucas, Sarah reassured him, her hand resting on his. You've already shown them the power of vulnerability. They're starting to see you for who you truly are. We just need to keep that momentum going. On the day of Voices Unheard, the auditorium buzzed with energy. Students filed in, some chatting excitedly, others whispering nervously. Lucas took a deep breath, glancing at Sarah, who stood by his side, her face reflecting the same mix of anticipation and apprehension. Ready? She asked, squeezing his hand reassuringly. Yeah, let's do this, Lucas replied, feeling a surge of courage. As they took the stage together, the audience fell silent, their eyes focused on the two of them. Welcome to Voices Unheard, Sarah began, her voice steady despite the flutter in her stomach. Today we're here to share our stories, to listen, and to learn from one another. Each of us has a voice, and every voice deserves to be heard. Lucas felt the weight of the moment settle over him as he stepped forward, his heart pounding. I used to feel invisible, like no one noticed me, he said, his voice clear and strong. But through acting, I found a way to express myself. I discovered that my hearing loss doesn't define me, it's just a part of who I am. The audience listened intently, and Lucas glanced around, noticing nods of understanding. Encouraged, he continued, we all have our struggles, but it's important to remember that we're not alone. Together, we can create a space where everyone feels accepted and valued. As he spoke, Lucas felt a connection with his peers, a sense of solidarity that filled the room. He locked eyes with Sarah, who beamed at him, proud and supportive. They had come so far together, and this moment marked a new chapter in their lives. After their speeches, they opened the floor to others, inviting anyone who wanted to share their experiences. One by one, students stood up, their voices trembling yet resolute. Stories of bullying, loneliness, and triumph filled the room, weaving a tapestry of shared experiences. Lucas felt a swell of hope as he listened. This was what they had aimed for, a community coming together, embracing their differences and celebrating their shared humanity. He could feel the energy shift, a palpable sense of understanding blossoming among his classmates. By the end of the event, the auditorium erupted into applause, a chorus of appreciation ringing out. Lucas and Sarah stood together, overwhelmed by the response. They had accomplished something significant, something that would resonate beyond this day. As the crowd began to disperse, Lucas felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. Not only had he found his voice, but he had also helped others find theirs. The journey was far from over, but he was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the knowledge that he was never alone. Lucas and Sarah's friendship blossomed as they navigated the newfound success from their inclusion campaign. It was the kind of bond that felt both fragile and sturdy, like a delicate glass sculpture, beautiful yet capable of shattering under pressure. They spent hours together, sharing their dreams and fears, finding solace in each other's company. One afternoon, they sat on a bench outside the school, the sun spilling golden light over them. Lucas could hear the distant sounds of laughter and chatter, but in that moment he felt a sense of peace. He turned to Sarah, whose face was illuminated with a gentle glow. You know, he began, his voice soft, I never thought I would find someone who understood me like you do. Sarah smiled, her eyes sparkling. I feel the same way. It's like we were meant to find each other. You've helped me more than you know. She shifted slightly, taking a deep breath. I've always felt like an outsider, especially since my dad left. But with you, I don't feel so alone anymore. Lucas nodded, feeling a knot of empathy tighten in his chest. I get that. I've battled with my hearing loss for so long, and it's easy to feel invisible. But when I'm on stage, it's like everything else fades away. I can be whoever I want to be. Exactly, Sarah exclaimed, her voice rising with enthusiasm. You're incredible up there. The way you express yourself, it's inspiring. I wish I could find that same courage. Her gaze dropped to her lap, and Lucas could sense the weight of her insecurities. Maybe you will, he said gently, his heart racing. You have a talent for music. Have you ever thought about performing? Sarah's cheeks flushed. I love singing, but I've always been too scared to share it with anyone. What if I mess up? Lucas leaned closer, his expression earnest. You won't mess up, and even if you do, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you're brave enough to try. Like I did with acting. She looked up, her eyes searching his. You really think I should? I know you should, he replied, his voice resonating with conviction. "We could do something together for the next show. You could sing and I can help with the acting part. We can make it a duet." Sarah's face lit up, and for a moment, Lucas felt a surge of hope. "That sounds amazing, but what if I freeze on stage?" "Then we freeze together," he chuckled, trying to lighten the mood. "We'll figure it out as we go. It'll be fun." As the weeks passed, they began working together after school, melding their talents in a way that felt natural and exhilarating. Lucas discovered that Sarah's voice was ethereal, carrying a depth of emotion that resonated with him. She sang softly at first, hesitant, but as he encouraged her, she began to let loose, pouring her heart into each note. One day, while practicing in the empty auditorium, Lucas watched Sarah as she closed her eyes and let the music envelop her. He couldn't hear the melody, but he could feel it in the air, a gentle vibration that made his heart race. "You're incredible," he said, breaking the silence as she finished a song. "You have to let everyone hear this." "I don't know," she murmured, biting her lip. "What if they don't like it?" "Who cares?" he replied, his enthusiasm spilling over. "You're doing this for you, not for anyone else. Besides, I think you'll surprise yourself." Taking a deep breath, Sarah nodded hesitantly. "Okay, let's give it a shot. If it goes wrong, at least we'll have a good story to tell, right?" "Exactly." Lucas grinned, feeling the excitement building between them. "And I'll be right there with you. We'll face whatever comes together." As they continued rehearsing, Lucas felt a shift within himself. He was falling for Sarah. Her laughter, her kindness, the way she pushed through her fears. Each time they shared a moment, it felt as if the world faded away, leaving just the two of them in their little bubble of dreams and aspirations. One evening, as they were wrapping up a practice session, Lucas decided it was time to voice the feelings that had been swirling inside him. "Sarah," he started, his heart pounding, "there's something I've been meaning to tell you." She looked at him, curiosity dancing in her eyes. "What is it?" I really care about you," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "You mean a lot to me and I think I might." Before he could finish, Sarah interrupted, her expression shifting. "Lucas, I care about you too, but I'm not sure if now is the right time." His heart sank, but he nodded, understanding the hesitation in her voice. She had her own struggles to face, especially with her father's recent return. "I get it," he replied softly, trying to mask his disappointment. I don't want to lose what we have." "You won't," she promised, reaching for his hand. "You're my best friend and that's not going to change. I just need time to figure things out." With that, they returned to their practice, but the air felt heavier, filled with unspoken words and complicated emotions. In the following days, they continued to rehearse, but Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Each time he looked at Sarah, he felt a mix of admiration and longing, intertwined with the fear of pushing her away. Despite the tension, their performances brought them closer together. On the day of the school talent night, the auditorium buzzed with energy. Students filled the seats, chatting excitedly as the stage was set for the evening's acts. Lucas could feel his heart racing, but he also felt a sense of determination. He was ready to show everyone who he was, alongside Sarah. As they prepared backstage, Sarah turned to him, her face pale with nerves. "What if I mess up? What if they don't like it?" "Sarah," Lucas said, holding her gaze steady, "you're going to be amazing. Just remember, it's about expressing ourselves, not about perfection." With a deep breath, she nodded, taking comfort in his words. "Okay, let's do this." When their turn arrived, the audience quieted, and Lucas felt the thrill of adrenaline rush through him as they stepped onto the stage. He could see familiar faces in the crowd, some who had bullied him, some who had become friends, all there to witness their performance. As the music began, Lucas felt a wave of confidence wash over him. They sang and acted as one, their voices intertwining beautifully. In that moment, he forgot about everything else: the teasing, his insecurities, even the weight of unconfessed feelings. They were simply two friends pouring their hearts into something they loved. When they finished, the audience erupted into applause, a wave of sound that enveloped them. Lucas and Sarah exchanged exhilarated glances, their hearts soaring. In that moment, everything felt possible, and for the first time, Lucas truly believed in the power of their friendship. As they walked off stage, breathless and giddy, Lucas turned to Sarah, a huge smile on his face. "We did it. You were phenomenal." "I can't believe it," she exclaimed, her eyes shining with joy. "Thank you for believing in me." "Always," he replied, feeling a rush of warmth as he took in her radiant smile. In that moment, amidst the applause and the adrenaline, Lucas found a renewed strength, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, hand in hand with Sarah. Lucas leaned against the cool, graffiti-covered wall outside the school, feeling the last rays of sunlight warm his skin. His heart raced from the exhilarating performance he had just given, but the afterglow was fading, replaced by a familiar unease. He watched as students streamed past him, laughter and chatter filling the air. While the noise was a reminder of his isolation, today had been different. He had felt seen, if only for a moment, but as he glanced around, he noticed a small group of students whispering and pointing in his direction. The laughter turned into muffled snickers, and he felt a sharp pang of anxiety twist in his stomach. "Hey!" Sarah's voice cut through his thoughts, bright and clear. She approached him, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "You were amazing out there." Her enthusiasm was contagious, and Lucas couldn't help but smile. "Thanks," he replied, his voice soft but genuine. I didn't expect everyone to react like that. You captured their attention. You were in the moment, Sarah insisted, her eyes wide with admiration. You really showed everyone what you can do, Lucas. He felt a warmth swell in his chest. The validation from Sarah meant everything to him, and he found solace in her presence. I just wish they'd stop making comments. I thought it would get better after the performance. Sarah's expression grew serious. It takes time, but you can't let them get to you. Look at how far you've come. You're not that scared kid anymore. I guess, Lucas said, his gaze dropping to the ground, but it still hurts. Sometimes I feel like I'm just waiting for the next comment to come. Let's face them together, Sarah suggested, her tone firm. I'm not afraid anymore. It's time we stood up for ourselves. Lucas looked up at her, surprised. You really think we can do that? Absolutely, she exclaimed. We're already doing something amazing with this inclusion campaign. We can make a difference, and we don't have to do it alone. Lucas's heart raced at the thought. He had never considered confronting the bullies directly. I'm just not sure how. What if they don't listen? We won't know unless we try, Sarah replied confidently. You've already shown everyone your talent, and now it's time to show them who you are beyond the stage. After a moment of silence, Lucas nodded slowly. Okay, let's do it. Over the next few days, Lucas and Sarah's resolve grew stronger. They devised a plan to confront those who had bullied them, armed with newfound courage and support for each other. But as Lucas prepared to face the challenges ahead, he found himself wrestling with his own insecurities. One afternoon, while sitting in the park, Sarah noticed Lucas staring off into the distance, lost in thought. She nudged him gently. Hey, what's on your mind? I don't know, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. I feel like I'm finally coming into my own, but I'm scared of what happens if I fail. What if they don't take us seriously? Lucas, you've already accomplished so much. You've faced your fears and performed in front of people who used to make fun of you. You can't let the fear of failure hold you back. What's the worst that could happen? He contemplated her words for a moment. They could laugh at me again, or worse, they could make fun of you for standing up with me. Let them, she said with a fierce determination. If they want to laugh, that's their problem, not ours. We're doing this together. You're not alone anymore. Lucas felt a surge of gratitude. Sarah had a way of reassuring him, making him feel like he could conquer the mountains that loomed before him. You really believe in me, don't you? Of course I do, she replied, her eyes softening. You're strong, Lucas. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Encouraged by Sarah's unwavering support, Lucas began to find his voice. They started meeting with other students who shared their vision for an inclusive school environment. Together, they brainstormed ideas for campaigns, activities, and events that would encourage acceptance and understanding among their peers. As the days passed, the teasing from some classmates decreased, but there were still a few who made snide remarks whenever they passed by. One afternoon, as Lucas and Sarah sat together on the bleachers, the familiar group approached, their expressions smug. Look who it is, the couple of freaks, one of the boys sneered, crossing his arms. What are you two planning next? A circus. Lucas felt the anger bubbling inside him but quickly glanced at Sarah, who remained calm beside him. You know what, she said, standing up. We're not going to let you get to us anymore. We're working on something important, and you're only proving why it's necessary. The boy scoffed, but Lucas felt a thrill at Sarah's boldness. Yeah, you can keep laughing, he added, finding his courage, but we're not going anywhere. We're going to make this school a better place, and you can't stop us. The boy's smirk faltered, and for a moment, Lucas sensed uncertainty in his eyes. But then he turned on his heel, laughing with his friends as they walked away, dismissing the confrontation. Did you see that? Lucas exclaimed, adrenaline coursing through him. We stood up to them. Sarah beamed, her excitement infectious. And we didn't back down. That felt amazing, didn't it? Yeah, it really did, Lucas admitted, a smile breaking across his face. I didn't think I could do that. You can do it again, she encouraged. We're just getting started. In the following weeks, their friendship deepened as they found common ground in their struggles and dreams. Late-night conversations turned into laughter and shared ambitions, each of them supporting the other through their personal journeys. One afternoon, as they sat in the library working on their campaign materials, Lucas watched Sarah as she focused intently on her notes, her brow furrowed in thought. You know, he said, breaking the silence, I've never really shared this with anyone before, but I've always felt different because of my hearing loss. Sarah looked up, her expression attentive. What do you mean? It's like there's a wall between me and everyone else, he explained, the words tumbling out. I can't hear things the way they do, and sometimes it makes me feel isolated, like I don't belong. I understand, she said softly. I felt that way when my dad left. It felt like I was missing a part of myself. That's exactly it, Lucas responded, a sense of relief washing over him. I've spent so long feeling like I had to hide who I am, but being with you, it feels different. Because we're in this together, Sarah assured him. We're not just individuals fighting our battles alone. We're a team. Lucas smiled, his heart swelling with appreciation for her support. "Thank you for being here, Sarah. You've helped me more than you know." "Always," she replied, her voice warm. "We're going to change things, Lucas." Together. As their campaign gained momentum, Lucas felt a growing sense of purpose and pride in their efforts. But with every step forward, he also felt the weight of his vulnerabilities. The teasing had lessened, but it never completely disappeared, and he often found himself questioning if he was truly enough. In a quiet moment after school, while sitting on the swings in the park, Lucas turned to Sarah. "Do you ever worry about what happens next? What if we don't succeed?" "Of course," she admitted, her gaze steady, "but I've learned that even if we fail, it doesn't define us. What matters is that we tried and we fought for what's right." Lucas nodded, her words resonating deeply within him. "You're right. I don't want to let anyone down, especially you." "You won't," Sarah said firmly, reaching out to squeeze his hand. "No matter what happens, we'll figure it out together. Just remember that you're not alone anymore." As they sat there, the sun setting behind them, Lucas felt a flicker of hope igniting within him. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, and he wouldn't have to carry the burden of loneliness or fear by himself. With Sarah by his side, he was ready to embrace the journey that awaited them. The auditorium buzzed with excitement as students filled the seats for the highly anticipated talent night. Bright lights illuminated the stage, casting a warm glow over the polished wooden floor, and the air was thick with the scent of popcorn and anticipation. Lucas stood backstage, heart pounding in his chest, his palms sweaty against the fabric of his shirt. He glanced at Sarah, who was adjusting the microphone stand, her face a mask of concentration. "Are you ready?" she asked, looking up at him with those kind, understanding eyes that made him feel like he could conquer the world. Lucas nodded, but the words felt stuck in his throat. He had rehearsed their performance countless times, yet the thought of being in front of their peers still filled him with a mix of exhilaration and dread. "I think so. It's different this time. Everyone's really going to be watching." Sarah smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "You've got this, Lucas. Remember, we're in this together. Just focus on what we've practiced. We're going to be amazing." Taking a deep breath, he tried to let her confidence wash over him. They were a team, and together they had created a beautiful piece that blended her musical talent with his acting. He felt a flicker of hope, and before he could second-guess himself, he stepped closer to the edge of the stage, peering into the audience. The crowd was full of familiar faces, students from his classes, teachers, and even some of the kids who had once mocked him. Lucas felt a pang of vulnerability, but he also remembered the journey he had taken to get to this moment. He had fought through loneliness, bullying, and self-doubt, and now here he was, ready to share a piece of himself with the world. As the spotlight shifted to center stage, the announcer called their names. "Please welcome Lucas and Sarah." "Showtime," Sarah whispered, and they exchanged a brief look filled with determination before stepping into the light. The stage was alive with energy as Lucas and Sarah took their positions. The music started, a soft piano melody that Sarah had composed herself. Lucas's heart soared, and he felt a sense of clarity wash over him. The audience quieted, and all he could hear was the gentle rise and fall of the music, blending seamlessly with the emotions they were about to share. As Sarah began to sing, her voice filled the room, rich and full of emotion. Lucas watched her, captivated by her passion and grace. He had never seen anyone express themselves so freely, and it fueled his own performance. He moved closer to her, his body instinctively following the rhythm, feeling the beat pulse through him even though he couldn't hear it. When it was his turn to speak, he felt the energy shift. He stepped forward, his hands moving to form the sign for "I love you," a gesture that carried a weight of meaning he hoped would resonate with everyone. He could feel the audience lean in, captivated by the combination of their talents, and his nerves began to fade away. "I may not hear the laughter," he began, his voice steady and clear, "but I feel the joy in the silence. I may not hear the words, but I understand the feelings behind them." As he spoke, he saw nods of understanding from the crowd, faces lighting up with recognition. He was no longer the invisible boy in the cafeteria. He was Lucas, a performer with a story to tell. The performance flowed effortlessly, a beautiful dance between Sarah's enchanting voice and Lucas's expressive movements. They intertwined their talents, showcasing vulnerability, strength, and the deep connection they had forged through their struggles. Lucas poured his heart into every gesture, every sign, and every word he spoke, hoping to inspire those who had once doubted him. As they reached the climax of their performance, Lucas felt a surge of adrenaline. The audience erupted into applause, a thunderous wave of appreciation that washed over him. He could see his classmates clapping, some even standing, and it filled him with an overwhelming sense of acceptance. When they finished, the applause grew louder, and Lucas turned to Sarah, a wide grin spreading across his face. "We did it," he exclaimed, breathless with excitement. "Of course we did. You were incredible." Sarah beamed, her eyes shining with pride. They shared a celebratory hug, feeling the warmth of the moment wash over them. As they stepped off stage, the exhilaration of the performance still coursing through his veins, Lucas felt a blossoming confidence. The past few months had been a whirlwind of emotions, but standing there, surrounded by friends and classmates who had cheered for him, he felt a profound sense of belonging. "Lucas, Sarah." A group of students rushed over, led by Jamie, a girl from their drama club. That was amazing. You guys were phenomenal. Yeah, totally. I didn't know you could sign like that. Another chimed in, eyes wide with admiration. Lucas's heart swelled. Thank you. It was a team effort, he replied, glancing at Sarah, who was still glowing from their success. Seriously, you guys should perform again. You have to. This is just the beginning, Jamie insisted, her enthusiasm infectious. As they mingled with their classmates, Lucas felt a connection he had longed for. The teasing and isolation that had haunted him seemed to fade away, replaced by laughter and camaraderie. He watched as students congratulated them, and he felt a warmth spreading through him, a feeling of acceptance he had never thought possible. Yet, as the celebration continued, Lucas's mind wandered to Sarah. He had been wrestling with his feelings for her ever since their friendship had deepened. She was more than just a friend. She was someone who understood him, someone he admired and respected. But confessing his feelings felt like a risk he wasn't sure he was ready to take. Hey Sarah, he said, catching her attention as the crowd began to disperse. Can we talk for a minute? Sure, she replied, her smile brightening his heart. They stepped away from the bustling crowd, finding a quiet corner of the auditorium, the lingering echoes of applause still ringing in the air. I just wanted to say how incredible you were tonight, he began, trying to gauge her reaction. Your voice, it's just beautiful. Thanks, Lucas, she said, her cheeks flushing slightly. But you were amazing too. I really think we made a great team. He hesitated, his heart racing. There's something I've been meaning to tell you, he started, but the words tangled in his throat. Instead, he took a deep breath and decided to let it out. I really like you, Sarah. More than just a friend. Her eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment, he feared he had ruined everything. But then she smiled softly, her expression thoughtful. I like you too, Lucas. I really do. But I have something to tell you as well. His heart dropped slightly as he braced himself for what she was about to say. What is it? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Sarah took a deep breath, her gaze dropping to the floor. My dad, he came back. He wants to talk to me, but I'm not sure how I feel about it. It's complicated. Lucas's heart sank at her revelation. He could see the struggle in her eyes, the conflict of emotions. I'm here for you no matter what you decide, he said gently, wanting to support her but feeling the weight of her news. Thank you, Lucas. It makes everything so complicated. I'm still trying to figure out what I want, she confessed, her voice tinged with uncertainty. He nodded, understanding the depth of her situation. I get it. Take your time. I don't want to rush you into anything. I want you to know how I feel. She smiled faintly, and in that moment, he realized that while their paths might be fraught with challenges, there was a bond between them that was undeniable. As they stood together in the aftermath of their performance, Lucas couldn't help but feel that whatever lay ahead, whether it was a newfound relationship or the complexities of her family situation, they would face it together. And for the first time in a long time, he felt hopeful about the future. As the weeks rolled on, the once vibrant camaraderie between Lucas and Sarah began to fray at the edges. The school corridors, which had once felt like a sanctuary of acceptance and support, now echoed with an uncomfortable tension. Lucas, with his heart set on supporting Sarah, couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. He watched her retreat into a shell of her own, often absorbed in her thoughts, her laughter less frequent and her smiles more forced. One afternoon, Lucas found Sarah sitting alone on a bench outside the school. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the pavement. He approached cautiously, sensing the heaviness in the air. Hey, he said softly, taking a seat next to her. You okay? Sarah turned her gaze towards the ground, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her hoodie. I don't know, Lucas. It's just, everything feels so complicated right now. Lucas felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Is it about your dad? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. I know you've been thinking about him a lot. She sighed deeply, the weight of her emotions visible in her furrowed brow. Yeah, he reached out again. I don't know if I should meet him or just let it go. Her voice wavered, revealing the turmoil beneath her calm exterior. Have you talked to him? Lucas pressed gently, wishing he could help her untangle the mess in her heart. What does he want? Sarah leaned back against the bench, staring at the sky. He wants to explain, I guess. But how do you forgive someone who left you? I feel like I'd just be opening old wounds. Lucas nodded, understanding her pain all too well. It's tough, I get it. But you're not alone, you know? I'm here for you whatever you decide. A small smile flickered across Sarah's lips, but it quickly faded. Thanks, Lucas. I just wish everything didn't feel so heavy. You've been through so much yourself, and I feel like I'm dragging you down. Don't say that, he replied, a hint of frustration creeping into his voice. We're in this together. Just like the play, right? We're a team. Sarah looked at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I wish it were that easy. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing myself in all this, and I don't want to drag you down into my mess. Lucas took a deep breath, trying to keep his emotions in check. You're not dragging me down, Sarah. You're my friend. I want to be here for you, but you have to let me in. In that moment, Sarah's phone buzzed, breaking the tension that hung between them. She glanced at the screen, her expression shifting to one of frustration. It's him, she huffed, tossing the phone onto the grass. I can't do this right now. Maybe you should talk to him, Lucas suggested, his heart aching for her. Just hear him out. You deserve to know why he left. I don't want to hear excuses, she snapped, her voice rising slightly. I want to feel whole, not more broken than I already am. Lucas felt a pang of helplessness. I understand, but you can't pretend it doesn't matter. It's okay to feel angry, but shutting him out won't fix anything. Sarah turned to him, her eyes fierce. You don't get it. You've faced your challenges head on, but this is different. This is my family. I'm scared that if I open that door, I'll regret it. Lucas reached out, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You're right. I don't know the full extent of your pain, but I do know that facing it is the only way to move forward. I'll be right here with you no matter what. A silence enveloped them, heavy and charged. Sarah looked down again, her expression softening as she absorbed Lucas's words. I just don't want to lose you, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. You won't lose me, he assured her, squeezing her shoulder gently. We'll figure this out together. You mean too much to me. Days turned into weeks, and as Sarah battled her inner demons, Lucas found himself facing new challenges of his own. The school had seen a shift in dynamics. The inclusion campaign they started had gained traction, but not without resistance. Some students rallied behind their cause, while others remained staunchly opposed. Rumors and whispers circulated, with Lucas often at the center. One afternoon, Lucas was in the library, working on a speech for an upcoming debate about inclusion. He was determined to articulate his thoughts clearly, hoping to inspire others to embrace diversity. He scribbled notes furiously, but his concentration shattered when he overheard a group of students nearby. Can you believe that kid? He thinks he can change things just because he had a moment on stage. One of them scoffed. Right? It's not like he's a real actor. He can't even hear properly. Another chimed in, laughter punctuating their words. Lucas's heart sank. He felt exposed and vulnerable, the familiar sting of their mockery piercing through his resolve. He glanced over, and their laughter faded as they noticed him watching. The leader of the group, Jake, smirked at him. What's wrong, Lucas? Don't like hearing the truth? Jake taunted, his tone dripping with disdain. Lucas clenched his fists, anger surging within him. You don't know anything about me, he shot back, his voice steady despite the tremor of emotion. Jake rolled his eyes. Oh, please spare us the drama. You should just stay in your lane. Before Lucas could respond, Sarah appeared, her presence a calming force. Leave him alone, Jake. He's doing something important. You wouldn't understand. Look who it is, Jake sneered, feigning a smile. The drama queen's sidekick. What's next? A duet about how lonely you are. Cut it out, Jake. This isn't funny, Sarah said, standing her ground beside Lucas. You're just proving why our campaign is necessary. For a moment, the air crackled with tension, the stares of onlookers weighing heavily on them. Lucas felt a surge of gratitude for Sarah's support, but he also felt the weight of their judgment. Whatever, Jake scoffed, waving them off. You'll see how ridiculous this is when nobody shows up to your little events. As they walked away, Lucas felt a mix of anger and frustration. I hate how they treat us, he said, his voice low. It's like they can't see past their own insecurities. I know, Sarah replied softly, her eyes reflecting understanding, but we can't let them get to us. You're stronger than that, and so am I. We're making a difference even if they don't see it. But it hurts, Lucas admitted, his vulnerability creeping in. I thought things would get better after the play. I thought we'd change minds. We will, Sarah assured him, placing a hand on his arm. It just takes time, and we need to keep fighting for what we believe in. Lucas nodded, feeling the fire of determination reignite within him. You're right. We can't give up. We have to keep pushing for ourselves and for everyone else who feels like they don't belong. With that, they made a pact to face the challenges ahead together. They would stand strong against the resistance, unyielding in their quest for inclusion and acceptance. The battle was far from over, but with each other's support, they felt ready to take on the world. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the school courtyard as Lucas made his way to the familiar bench where he often found solace. The chatter of students buzzed around him, yet he felt a growing distance from it all. He was still riding the high of the recent talent night, where he and Sarah had captivated the audience with their performance. The standing ovation had felt like a breakthrough, a validation of everything he had worked for. But now, that joy was overshadowed by an unsettling tension brewing between him and Sarah. As he sat down, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through his messages, but he found nothing that could distract him from the gnawing feeling in his stomach. He glanced up just as Sarah appeared, her brow furrowed, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. Lucas felt a pang of concern. She looked as if she hadn't slept well. Hey, he said softly, offering a smile that felt weak even to him. You okay? Sarah sat down beside him, her gaze focused on the ground. I'm trying to be, she replied slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know how to handle everything that's happening right now. What do you mean? Lucas asked, concern etched into his features. You've been amazing. The performance was incredible. Everyone loved it. She sighed, running her fingers through her hair. It's not about the performance, Lucas. It's about my dad. He's back, and I'm trying to figure out how to feel about that. I thought I was ready, but now, it's just complicated. Lucas nodded, trying to process her words. He remembered the pain in her eyes when she had shared her story of abandonment, and he could sense the turmoil that was brewing within her. "You don't have to figure it all out at once," he said gently. "I'm here for you, whatever you need." "But what if I need to be alone?" she shot back, looking at him with a mix of sadness and frustration. "I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not." The words stung, but Lucas understood. "I get that, but you don't have to push me away. We can face this together." Sarah looked away, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't want to hurt you, Lucas. I care about you too much for that." He reached out, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're not hurting me. I want to support you. Just tell me what you need, and I'll do my best to be there." Silence lingered between them, heavy with unspoken thoughts. Lucas felt the weight of their friendship sit squarely on his shoulders, and he wished he could ease her burden. "Maybe we should talk about it," he offered. "You know, about your dad. What are you thinking?" She took a deep breath, her voice trembling. I think I'm scared. Scared of seeing him again. What if he's changed? What if he hasn't? I've built this life without him, and now I'm supposed to just accept him back." Lucas nodded, understanding the complexity of her emotions. "It's okay to be scared. It's a big deal. But you don't have to rush into anything. Maybe start with a letter or something just to express how you feel." Sarah looked thoughtful, chewing on her lip. "That might be easier. But then again, what if I never want to see him?" "You have every right to feel that way. It's your choice," Lucas said firmly. "Just remember, whatever you decide, I'm here." As Sarah glanced at him, Lucas could see the conflict in her eyes. He wanted to reach out, to pull her into a comforting embrace, but he respected her space. Instead, he shifted the conversation, hoping to lighten the mood. "How about we plan something fun? A little distraction from all this? Maybe a movie night or a trip to the park?" She smiled weakly at the suggestion. "That sounds nice, but I'm just worried I'll ruin it with my thoughts." "Then we'll make it a distraction, okay?" Lucas insisted, determination in his voice. "We can binge watch that series you love, and I'll bring popcorn. No heavy discussions, just good old-fashioned fun." "All right, you win," she said, finally allowing a smile to break through. "But only if you promise to let me pick the movie." "Deal," he replied, relieved to see a flicker of her old spirit return. But beneath the surface, he couldn't shake the feeling that their friendship was on shaky ground. The days following their conversation were filled with uncertainty. Lucas felt the distance between them grow as Sarah became increasingly preoccupied with her father's return. He longed to reach out, to pull her back to him, but every time he tried, he found her retreating further into herself. At school, the buzz of inclusion continued to grow, but Lucas felt like an outsider in his own cause. He found himself speaking at assemblies, advocating for acceptance and understanding, yet the words felt empty without Sarah by his side. He missed the way they would bounce ideas off each other, their laughter filling the void of loneliness that had once defined his life. One afternoon, after a particularly draining debate meeting, Lucas found himself sitting alone in the library, the weight of his worries pressing heavily on his chest. He was lost in thought when Sarah entered, her expression unreadable. "Hey," she said, her voice barely breaking the silence. "Hey," he replied, trying to sound casual, though his heart raced. "How've you been?" She shrugged, taking a seat across from him. "I've been thinking." "About your dad?" he ventured cautiously. "Yeah," she admitted, biting her lip. "I'm supposed to meet him next week. I don't know what to say. I feel like I'm being pulled in two different directions." "Do you want to see him?" Lucas asked gently. "I don't know," she confessed, her voice wavering. "Part of me wants to scream at him for leaving, but another part, it just wants to know why. Why he left, why he's back. I'm scared that I'll just be disappointed." Lucas leaned forward, his heart aching for her. "Whatever happens, you'll get through it. You're strong, Sarah, and you have people who care about you. You don't have to face this alone." "I know," she replied, her eyes glistening. "It's just hard. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing control of everything, especially us." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken feelings. Lucas felt a lump form in his throat. "You're not losing me," he said fiercely. "I'm still here. I'll always be here. She hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to drag you down with my problems. You've done so much for me already. Don't you get it?" Lucas urged, his eyes locking onto hers. "You're not dragging me down. You're my friend, and I want to be there for you. That's what friends do." She looked away, and Lucas could see the turmoil churning within her. "I just feel like I'm not the person you thought I was." "That's not true," he insisted, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "You're still the same person I care about. You're just going through a tough time. We all have our struggles. I just don't know if I can handle this," she admitted, her voice cracking. "What if I end up hurting you? Then we deal with it together," he said firmly, his heart racing. "You don't have to protect me from your pain. I want to help you even if it's hard." For a moment, silence enveloped them, the gravity of their conversation sinking in. Lucas could see the conflict in her eyes, a battle between vulnerability and fear. He reached out, placing his hand over hers, a gesture of solidarity. "I'm not going anywhere," he said softly. You mean too much to me. Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks and she squeezed his hand tightly. Thank you, Lucas. I don't know what I'd do without you. Lucas felt a surge of determination. He wanted to be her anchor, her support, no matter how tumultuous the waters became. We'll figure this out, one step at a time. The bell rang, breaking the moment, but as they gathered their things, Lucas sensed a shift between them. The tension that had defined their recent interactions began to dissipate, replaced by a fragile hope. As they walked out of the library together, Lucas knew they were still facing a challenging road ahead. But for the first time in a while, he felt that they could navigate it together, hand in hand. As the auditorium filled with students and faculty, a palpable energy thrummed in the air. The event aimed to promote inclusion and acceptance, a cause that Lucas had passionately championed alongside Sarah. The stage was set, and the spotlight shone brightly, illuminating the faces of those who had come to listen, to share, and to support one another. Lucas stood backstage, heart racing, his palms sweaty as he prepared to share his story, a story he hoped would inspire others. Just as he was about to step onto the stage, his phone buzzed in his pocket, startling him. He fished it out, glancing at the screen. It was a message from his mother, Carla. Confusion washed over him as he read the words that felt like a punch to the gut. Lucas, I need to talk to you. I found something about your past that you need to know. His heart sank and his breath hitched in his throat. What could it possibly be? The weight of uncertainty crashed over him, and he felt his stomach twist. Ignoring the thrum of the crowd, Lucas turned away from the stage, seeking a quiet corner where he could process the message. He could hear the murmurs of anticipation from the audience, but right now, the noise felt distant, as if he were submerged underwater. Lucas. Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts, pulling him back into the moment. She approached, her brow furrowed with concern. Are you all right? You look pale. I just got a message from my mom. Lucas stammered, his mind racing. It's important. I don't know if I can do this. What does it say? Sarah asked, stepping closer, her eyes searching his for answers. Lucas hesitated, feeling the weight of his emotions. She found something about my past, something I need to know. Do you want to read it? Sarah offered gently, her voice laced with empathy. He nodded, still holding the phone tightly in his hand. As he read the message again, his heart sank further. It says I have an older brother. He's hearing impaired too, and he was given up for adoption. The words hung heavy in the air, and Sarah's eyes widened in shock. Oh my God, Lucas, that's huge. Have you talked to your mom about it? I'm about to go on stage to share my story, and now this? Lucas felt a wave of frustration wash over him. What if I'm not ready for this? What if I don't even know who he is? What if this changes everything? Sarah placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You don't have to do this alone. You have me, and you have everyone out there who cares about you. This could be a chance to find out more about yourself, to understand where you come from. Lucas inhaled deeply, his mind racing with possibilities. Part of him wanted to retreat, to hide away from the spotlight and the pressure of the moment. But another part yearned for connection, to understand the void in his life that had always existed. What if this brother is nothing like me? What if he's angry, or what if he doesn't want to be found? Then you'll figure it out together, Sarah encouraged, her voice steady. You're not just Lucas the boy with hearing loss anymore. You're Lucas, the boy who's brave enough to search for his brother. That's powerful. Lucas looked into Sarah's eyes, finding comfort in her unwavering support. You really think so? I know so, she replied, a small smile breaking through her concern. And the audience out there, they're going to rally behind you. They want to hear your story. They want to see you shine. With a deep breath, Lucas nodded, feeling a flicker of determination ignite within him. Okay, I'll do it. He straightened his shoulders, ready to face whatever lay ahead. As he stepped onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinded him, but he could hear the murmurs of the crowd gradually quieting down. He could see familiar faces, friends, classmates, and even those who had once teased him. Taking a moment to gather himself, he felt a surge of gratitude for the journey he had taken to reach this moment. Hi everyone, Lucas began, his voice steady despite the butterflies in his stomach. I'm Lucas, and I want to share a part of my story that's been a journey of self-discovery for me. He paused, glancing at Sarah, who stood at the edge of the stage, her supportive smile encouraging him to continue. For a long time I felt alone. I dealt with bullying and loneliness, and I struggled to find where I belonged. But acting changed everything for me. It helped me find my voice, and it connected me with people who understand what it's like to feel different. The audience listened intently, and Lucas felt a warmth spread through him as he shared his experiences, his struggles with hearing loss, the teasing, and the unexpected friendships he had formed. He spoke about the inclusion campaign and the importance of accepting everyone for who they are. And today, he continued, I received a message from my mom that changed everything. I found out that I have an older brother. He's also hearing impaired, and he was given up for adoption. I don't know him yet, but I want to find him. I want to understand my past, and I want to know how our stories intertwine. Whispers swept through the audience, and Lucas could feel their energy shift. He caught a glimpse of Sarah's encouraging nod, and he pressed on, his voice gaining strength. If you've ever felt like you don't belong or if you're struggling with your own story, I want you to know that you're not alone. We all have our battles and our pasts, but together we can create a community of acceptance. As he finished, the auditorium erupted into applause. The sound resonated through him, filling the void of uncertainty that had threatened to consume him moments ago. He stepped back, feeling a swell of pride and relief wash over him. Later, as the event concluded, Lucas descended from the stage, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. He spotted Sarah waiting for him, her eyes shining. "You were amazing, Lucas. Everyone was so moved by your story." "I can't believe I actually did it," he replied, disbelief etched across his face. "And now, I have to figure out how to search for my brother. I don't even know where to start." Sarah's expression turned serious. "We'll figure it out together. You're not alone in this. I can help you research and we can talk to your mom about it. She might have more information." Lucas felt a sense of gratitude wash over him. "Thank you, Sarah. I don't know what I'd do without you." As the crowd began to disperse, Lucas turned to leave the auditorium, a newfound sense of purpose igniting within him. The search for his brother would be a journey filled with uncertainty, but he was ready to face it head-on. He knew that with Sarah by his side, he could navigate the complexities of his past and embrace the future that awaited him. As they walked out together, Lucas felt a flicker of hope. The path ahead was unclear, but for the first time in a long time, he felt empowered to seek the answers he had longed for. The journey was just beginning, and he couldn't wait to see where it would lead.